All right, Braves fans, let's get rolling. I'm George McNair, and this is State of the Braves. Well, guys, to call Monday a crazy day would be a massive understatement. The Braves sneak into the playoffs on the very last day possible, actually beyond the last day possible, right? The Mets and Braves having to play this crazy doubleheader on Monday, both of them ultimately getting into the playoffs. So the Braves, this is the most 2024 Braves thing ever, right? The Braves get into the playoffs, and on the same day, we learn that they lose Chris Sale, the likely Cy Young Award winner, the guy who's really carried the Braves throughout the entire season, the guy that you feel like, okay, if you get into the playoffs, game one, you're the favorite in that game because you've got Chris Sale going. We learned that he, at the very least, will not be available probably for the first round against the Padres. So you get in, but then at the same time you learn that you won't have Chris Sale, and it's really just felt like that has been the way that this season has gone the entire time, right? You take a step forward, or you have this great win, or you have this great moment, and then in the same game or right after the game, you learn that some guy has gone down with an injury. And so it happens again. The Braves learning that they don't have Chris Sale to go for game two. And, mentally, this team they've had to overcome so much. I mean, they almost have to have some kind of complex at this point where they just, what's going to happen next? What bad thing is going to happen next? And you wouldn't blame them for feeling that way. So, yeah, it puts a little bit of a wet blanket on this great moment. The Braves do make the playoffs. So I don't want to go immediately to the negative. We will definitely focus on some of the things that the Braves have done to overcome all of these things to make it to the playoffs. I will say that it is a massive accomplishment for this team that is at this point just a very ragtag group of guys. That they have made the playoffs, and they're the 5 seed in the playoffs. They're going to go to San Diego, and they're certainly not going to be a favorite in probably any series that they play. If they get beyond San Diego, they won't be a favorite. And that's a very different way, right, for the Braves to go about this. They certainly were not the favorite in 2021 when they won the World Series. Being the favorite in 2022 and 2023 did not work well for them. So, hey, who knows? Maybe this is the way to go. The pressure is off a little bit more. But look, as Braves fans, we can be happy and maybe a little more than a little relieved, or maybe a lot more than a little relieved, that the 2024 regular season is over. Man, this has been a hard season to get through. It's been such a weird, emotional, frustrating, disappointing season in so many ways. Losing all your favorite players down to injury, the ups and downs, the constant thinking, okay, we're good, we made it, and oh no, we're not going to make it. We blew it all, and then just the roller coaster ride that it's been. I mean, I've told you guys, this has not been a very fun regular season for me. Not a lot of joy in this season, not a lot of great, exciting wins. It's just grinding. But all that to say, yeah, this team still accomplished a lot to get into the playoffs, to give themselves a chance to make a run. They've overcome a heck of a lot to do that. So you have to give this team a lot of credit for that. I think this is one of the more mentally strong teams I've ever seen. And at the same time, it's one of the weakest teams I've ever seen in terms of being able to do a lot of the little things the right way and put themselves in a position to win consistently. Quite honestly, I'll get into it a little bit more, but this doubleheader shouldn't have even been necessary. They made a great run to win the first 2 games in Kansas City, and then you're going against Kansas City's basically 6th starter and their middle relief, and you can only get 2 runs out of that. And Charlie Morton gives up that 3-run homer in the first inning, and somehow you lose that game when really just everything was in your favor to win that game. And if you had to play the doubleheader for the Mets, it would have been purposeless for you. It wouldn't have mattered, and you could have thrown anybody in those games and saved your bullpen and saved your starters. So all that to say, I mean, to me, that Kansas City game was actually the biggest blunder through this whole thing. And of course, the Braves almost missed the playoffs entirely because they don't win that game and because they blow game one. A very exciting game, but very crazy, frustrating game at the same time that the Braves don't win. They have to win game two against the Mets. They do it. To their credit, they bounce back once again and do it. But man, they made things as hard on themselves as humanly possible, which again, that's kind of been this season in a nutshell. So yeah, we're not going to downplay what this team has accomplished. I'm willing to bet no other team in baseball could have overcome. Do we even have to rehash it at this point? Losing so many great players, and then at the end, when you absolutely have to win the last game of the season, losing your Cy Young winner, he's not able to go. You basically have to throw a bullpen game, a glorified bullpen game, and they shut out the Mets and to do it. So, again, to their credit, but for all the injuries that this team has endured, man, for them to lose Chris Sale, to not have him available to pitch in this must-win game, it was excruciating. And again, it was the most 2024 Braves thing that could have happened. I mean, none of it was surprising to me. In a lot of ways, this season has turned me into a little bit of a pessimist to where you just think, what's going to go wrong to, and the whole time I told a couple buddies, I kind of expect this team on the last day of the season to not get in, right? To lose it. And this whole thing has in a lot of ways been for naught. So that didn't happen. And again, they got in, and very thankfully they got in, and we'll see how it goes from here. So let's recap how the Braves got into the playoffs. And then I want to preview for you guys the Padres series coming up today. I'm bringing this to you on Tuesday morning, and so it's a quick turnaround, obviously, for the Braves to jump on a plane after that Mets series. They will not be well rested for this entire series, and to have to do this on the West Coast on top of everything else, it's incredibly challenging. And of course, the weather has played a part in this whole thing, which is just another piece to this whole crazy season. They had a lot of rainouts and weird schedule things, and it just ends in the same way. So obviously, Hurricane Helene was way more devastating to people around the Southeast, and we're certainly praying for those people and the real problems that they're facing now. But from a baseball standpoint, certainly threw a wrench into the Braves and Mets here at the end of the season. So yeah, this hurricane and these two games that had to be rescheduled, it set up what might have been the craziest week ever for the Atlanta Braves. Right? They entered this week. Right? They entered this series with the Mets down 2 games. They desperately needed to win the series against the Mets to have a chance to make the playoffs, and it was not looking good at that point. Then you have Schwellenbach in game 1 just have a masterful performance, and then the hurricane hits, right? And so you're down 1 at that point. The hurricane forces this very awkward doubleheader on Monday to be scheduled, and in the meantime, Arizona starts to lose, right? And a little crack of hope starts to emerge for the Braves. And, then remarkably, the Braves were able to handle the Royals in their first 2 games. It was really, really helpful for the Braves that they beat the Royals in game 1 with a masterful performance from Max Fried. And at the same time, because the Twins lose, the Royals clinched. And so game 2, the Royals were basically resting everybody. I mean, this helped in such a huge way because, again, the Braves barely were able to score, and they got a Travis d'Arnaud walk-off home run in game 2 to win it. So it all just kind of fell right for the Braves up to that point, and then it seemed that everything started to crumble after that. So yeah, Royals game 1, Fried totally dazzles. Could be his last start at Truist. You knew that this guy was just on a mission. And when Fried locks in like this, you can kind of see it in his eyes. And honestly, in the first inning, I was like, okay, this is prime Max Fried. He's totally locked in. He's hitting every spot. And when he's like that, he's near unhittable, and he's also incredibly efficient. We've seen him go multiple complete games, and really, he was one batter away from doing that in this one. He went 8 2/3 innings, no earned runs, 3 hits allowed, and 9 strikeouts, and did so again very efficiently. He could have gone out, if this wasn't maybe a must win. Maybe he's still allowed to go one more hitter and get that complete game, but it's okay. He's able to walk off to a standing ovation. And let's just stop for a second and appreciate the contribution Max Fried has made to the Atlanta Braves. I mean, it's just Fried's been great, right? And yeah, he's had the occasional injuries and all that, but from Game 6 of the World Series to all of these really important starts, and now with Chris Sale going down, and you suddenly have to lean on Fried more once again. I mean, if he does end up going, if this is his swan song as a Brave, he seems to be in it really well. Hopefully, in the playoffs, he'll continue to perform in that way, and hopefully, if the Braves can win this series against the Padres, he can get another start at Truist Park, maybe. So that would be awesome all the way around. So Fried really carries the Braves, end up winning that game 3-0. Royals game 2, Ronaldo Lopez comes back. And at this point, this is when I really start thinking, maybe this Braves team has a chance to make a big run, because with Lopez very, very much showing that he's healthy. I mean, he was throwing 98, 99 miles an hour with his fastball coming back from the injured list. He goes 6 innings. He dominated, right? He dominated. It was a lesser Royals lineup in this one, but nonetheless, he looked really great. And then Travis comes up big with the walk-off home run in the 9th inning. A really cool big moment. We've had very few walk-offs this year, so especially walk-off homers. So that was a really awesome moment in such a big game for the Braves, right? So it all sets up now at this point. 3 games to go. You just need one win, and the best possible solution would be to sweep the Royals and guarantee yourself a playoff berth there. And, of course, that did not happen. I mean, and from the very first inning, Charlie Morton gives up a 3-run homer. The Braves go down. They actually go down 4-0. 4-2 is where they ended up. And again, the offense just not able to find any kind of rhythm. Multiple situations once again with a runner on third, less than 2 outs. They're not able to get those guys in. And, the back end of the order, especially when it's Arcia and Murphy right now, they're just not able to consistently put the bat on the ball, right? And especially Murphy. And, I think he was up multiple times in that game with runners on base, runners in scoring position, and just not able to do anything. And super frustrating. I'm getting more and more anti-Sean Murphy. I hate it because personally I like the guy. But, sub 200 batting average this year, and just was able to not do much at all. He had one big home run, and I think it was that first game against Kansas City, but there just has not been a lot from Murphy offensively this year, and it really makes me wonder what the Braves are going to do catching-wise moving forward. Are they just stuck with him? I mean, they gave him the big contract, the big extension. Are they just going to roll with him? I mean, probably. But anyways, that's kind of a long-term conversation we can have in the off season. All that being said, I would really like the Braves to just roll for the most part with d'Arnaud the rest of the way. He hasn't been very good offensively lately either, but I think he just gives you better at-bats and a better chance. And if he's playing a little bit more often, maybe his bat gets a little more consistent. It's the playoffs, so you just got to roll with who gives you the best chance. So anyways, yeah, that loss was really frustrating because, again, the Royals didn't need that game. The Braves did, and they were just so flat. So it sets up this doubleheader, right? This doubleheader that now you got to win one. You feel really good with Schwellenbach. He's been so good lately. you just, win this first game, and it's set up that way, right? Schwellenbach comes out um, with a 3-0 lead, and it all goes downhill from there. Um, this was, let me go back for a second, talk about the Royals loss. Okay, why was the Royals loss in game 3 particularly bad? Okay, number one, it forced Schwellenbach to throw in the doubleheader, right? If you wrap up a playoff spot against Kansas City, you can save Schwellenbach for game 1. And knowing what we know now with Sale going down, right, you really needed him for game 1 of the playoff series. Number two, you end up running down your bullpen in this 2-game doubleheader. And then the third thing is, okay, you play 2 games on Monday. Now you have to fly across the country and play a game at 5 p.m. West Coast time against the Padres, and probably be like severely jet lagged for the next 3 days that you just have to play well. So it all set up in a negative way by losing that Kansas City series. I just really wish they had put more into let's just go for the win against Kansas City. It's a little bit more of an all-in approach, all your chips on the table. But having Morton start that game and just the way it went down, I don't know. It was just a downer. So, anyways, it did set up this doubleheader. Mets game 1, right? This is the crazy game. Everyone in ESPN wants to call it the greatest game they've ever seen in regular season. I mean, I don't. As a Braves fan, you lose, you don't really feel that way. You feel like you just kind of blew it. And so, anyways, the Braves are 3-0 going into the 8th inning. Schwellenbach has been absolutely dealing, and Snitker makes the decision to send Schwellenbach back out there for the 8th. Immediately, I didn't like this because every time you try to squeeze one more inning out of a guy who's making a great start, especially Schwellenbach, he's kind of at like 85 pitches is where he starts to, and he's a young guy. This is kind of where he starts to go downhill a little bit. So they try to get one more out of him. He has this really long at bat. The guy ends up getting on, right? And he comes out of the game. I think the guy hit a double after like 9-10 pitch at bat. So he comes out of the game. Jimenez comes in. Okay, now he's got a runner on second, right? So I don't like this. I generally want when you can create a clean inning for a reliever, that's what I like. And so you've already not done that. Jimenez has to come out with the guy on second. Of course, he doesn't look good at all coming out. And then now it's 3-2. Iglesias comes in, gives up the 3-run homer eventually to Nimmo, and you're suddenly from 3-0 up, you're 6-3 down. And to the great credit of the Braves, Diaz comes in for the Mets, is clearly not himself. The Braves load the bases. Ultimately, Ozzie clears the bases with a double, and now you score 4 and you're up 7-6, right? But now you have lost Iglesias because he had to pitch the 8th. Pierce Johnson comes in. He hasn't been super great in the second half. He gives up this 2-run homer to Francisco Lindor, and you lose the game, right? I would say, would I say Snitker strongly mismanaged the bullpen here? No, but I think the decision to bring Schwellenbach back out in the 8th was the one bad decision, right? And it just spirals from there. Now you have to use Jimenez and Iglesias in the 8th inning. And so it just kind of all cratered from there. So, soon after the Braves lose, it's such a downer. And then you learn as a fan that, and Chris Sale is hurt and won't pitch game 2, right? Because you're banking on that the whole time. So, and this is back spasms. Apparently, this whole time that the Braves have pushed him back and said publicly that, we just want to, break glass in case of emergency. We'll just use him in a must win. And suddenly now you have this must win game and you don't have him available. He's been dealing with back spasms. Now, I don't know how clean cut it is. I've read a couple things where, he's had some good days where he thinks he could go. He's had some bad days. And so they've been very uncertain the whole time of how he was going to be on the day that they might need him. And then, just the back flared up again on Monday and he couldn't go. We know that if Chris Sale could have gone physically, he would go. This dude is a competitor to the nth degree. I also know that this had to just absolutely be gutting for him because of his last 4 years or so with Boston and injuries keeping him out of big games. And here it happens again. So it just stinks big time for Sale. It stunk for the Braves. It set up suddenly, you just feel like, oh gosh, this is how this season is going to end. Not having Sale, and just losing out on game 2 against the Mets of all teams, right? But very thankfully, the Braves bullpen comes up big. Grant Holmes was really big through 4 innings. He leaves in the 5th with nobody out, 2 runners on. Daysbel Hernandez comes in. And let me tell you something. Daysbel has had a few really big innings in the last 10 days or so. He hasn't been with the big league club, for much of the season, but he's had some really big moments. And, man, thank goodness for him. So he puts out really that one fire, and the Mets didn't do a ton after that. So the Braves end up winning game 2, 3-0. Iglesias comes in, has a very easy ninth this time around, and gets the save, and the Braves clinch in the last moment, right, of the regular season. Ozuna came up with a big 2-run hit to extend the lead from 1-0 to 3-0 in this one. He's been pretty silent as of late. His batting average dipped below 300. Then he came up with this big hit, so that was really good for him too. The Braves absolutely need him to be locked in for the playoffs. So the Braves get in. Now let's preview this Braves Padres series. It certainly looks a lot different without Chris Sale going. So look, the Braves secure a 7th straight trip to the postseason. That in of itself is a huge accomplishment, especially, again, everything that happened in this season. It is still true. You keep hearing, well, anything can happen. Just get in the playoffs. Anything can happen. And it is true. But certainly for a 3rd straight year, very frustrating here, right? For a 3rd straight year, the Braves limp into the playoffs. It's like the last week of the season, something happens to a pitcher or two, and they limp to the playoffs with a less than healthy rotation. They're suddenly scrambling to fill out one of their rotation spots, right, to make a playoff start. It's like, how much have the Braves done this year to try to protect their pitching staff, right? Remember, 2/3 of the season, they were basically going with a 6-man rotation to protect their pitchers. And yet, here we are, right? Here we are once again. The timing cannot be worse. Chris Sale likely out through the Padres series at least. And because you had to pitch Schwellenbach in this last day to get into the playoffs, he's also out for the Padres series. So yeah, like literally a week ago when Ronaldo Lopez made that great comeback start, Fried had just pitched his butt off. I'm like, I feel great about the Braves' chances now, right? Because at least their pitching is just locked down. And now it's not. At least for this Padres series, it's not set up well at all. And so now if they somehow survive this Padres series, it can kind of reset their rotation. So I'll talk about that a little bit in a minute. But for now, man, you got to win the series, obviously, and you're not set up well. Even Ronaldo Lopez, I have no idea. They used him for 1 inning in game 2. I think at that point they were still only up 1-0. So I kind of get why they did it. But man, now I have no idea his status for game 3 because he's weirdly now not on regular rest because of the 1 inning he pitched. So there's question mark of game 3 and game 1. You have Fried going for sure in game 2, and you feel good about that one. But man, it's just frustrating that the Braves can never seem to have their rotation set for the playoffs. Even in 2021, when they won it wasn't the case, and in 2020 it wasn't the case because they had so few pitchers in that shortened season that were pitching well. So yeah, who will pitch in game 1? Several names have been tossed around by Mark Bowman of MLB.com. Ian Anderson, who we know well but hasn't pitched in the big leagues for 2 years. He's had 15 starts in AAA. Has pitched pretty well, especially as of late. Or it could be Bryce Elder. Please no, but he's there. And AJ Smith-Shawver. These are the three most likely that Bowman put out. And you're just like, how are we here? How is this possible that this is game one of the playoffs and these are our options? How has this literally happened again? The Braves again made such an effort to protect their pitching staff so that this didn't happen. And of course, for all of their efforts, it's happened once again. Meanwhile, the Phillies pitchers who lead the league in innings pitched are all healthy, right? They're perfectly fine. I don't know how that works. Maybe they have a great training staff. Maybe the Braves need to look into their training methods. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but clearly, with all these injuries, some of them freak injuries, but it's just, it's like, man, something seems to be going on. So Ian Anderson, let's talk about him for a second. He's coming back from Tommy John surgery this season. He's made 15 starts at AAA. He has a 3.44 ERA down there, and he's generally looked pretty good over his last 8 to 10 starts. Last 5 starts especially have been pretty good. And he has the experience. He has tremendous postseason ERA. He's come up huge in big moments for the Braves in the past. But man, how hard is it to you haven't made a major league start in 2 years and to get called upon. I do think he's the likely choice just because of that experience. I feel like the Braves are going to lean on that. Bryce Elder, they tried it last year. I mean, he can't make a postseason start for you. I just would be shocked if they made that decision. Maybe I shouldn't be shocked. And that will be what will be announced as soon as I finish this podcast episode, but I sure hope not. AJ Smith-Shawver is the other option. He's only made 1 start very early this season, had some injury, has been very up and down for AAA. I think he had, in his very last start at AAA, he had 10 strikeouts. So he's had some good moments, looked good, but he's been giving up a lot of home runs down there too. So I don't know about that one either. The dark horse to me that hasn't been mentioned is Drew Hackenberg. Of course, he's never made a big league start, but he's looked really impressive, really since the Braves drafted him last year. This year, he's made it all the way up to AAA. For the year across all levels, 3.07 ERA, a 2.12 batting average against, and 144 strikeouts in 129 innings. He only has 4 starts at AAA, but actually all 4 of them have been very good in about 24 innings pitched. So if you're looking for your biggest bang for your buck of a guy who could come up and maybe just blank the Padres for 5 innings, or just get you through as much as possible, I actually think Drew Hackenberg. I know it's a huge ask for a rookie to make his debut right here, but I feel like that might be their best play. But if I'm betting on who they're going to go with, I think they'll go with the experience in Ian Anderson. I wish the Braves had a lefty they could throw in game 1. This is the other bad break of not having Chris Sale in this series, is the Padres really struggle against lefties. So the Braves are going to be able to throw Fried in game 2, but it would have been nice to throw Sale in game 1. The Padres against righties are hitting 272 with a 434 slug. So they crush righties. Against lefties, 239 with a 380 slug. So very different situation there. But again, they maybe there's a situation. I noticed Dylan Lee wasn't used too heavily yesterday. Maybe you try to throw him in Bummer. I'm not a big believer in Bummer, but maybe you try to save some of those lefties when your starter comes out. But again, your bullpen's pretty gassed. So whoever starts this game is going to have to go a ways. If somehow the Braves can miraculously win game 1, I do say miraculously because everything is just setting up against them to not win game 1, getting off the plane, and having no sleep and not having any of your starters ready. If they could win game 1, okay, now you totally flip the series because you've got Max Fried going in game 2. So the obvious best case scenario, I mean, I guess I shouldn't even say it out loud. The obvious best case scenario is the Braves win in 2 games, right? Win the 3-game series in 2 games. You get some rest. You let your rotation reset for the NLDS, right? You get Schwellenbach and Lopez back on good rest. Fried comes back maybe in game 3, and maybe Sale could come back and feel good for a game 4 or game 5. Again, none of that is guaranteed, but at the very least, your pitching staff is back to as close to full strength as it can be, barring Chris Sale's status. So, look, yeah, can you make it through? The Padres, it's going to be a tough game 1. The Padres are throwing Michael King in game 1, Joe Musgrove in game 2, and Dylan Cease in game 3. So King has actually quietly been the Padres' best starter this year. Musgrove and Cease have been solid. Musgrove has close to a 4 ERA. Cease is around a 3.5 ERA. And he's a strikeout master, right? He can strike you out. So I don't like that setup for the Braves as they strike out so much. But the Braves have never faced Michael King. He actually came over in the Juan Soto deal from the Yankees and has been, like I said, really good for them. So literally the Braves have never, no one in the lineup has faced Michael King. If the Braves get behind in this game, I could see this being a scenario where they kind of punt game 1. And I say that, I hate to say that. I hate to do that. But their low leverage relievers are kind of the only fresh arms in the bullpen. I mean, you've got Luke Jackson and Jesse Chavez. They're loose and ready to go, and everybody else pitched a good bit yesterday. Not that they'll all be unavailable, but you can imagine it's going to be a hard bounce back for them, especially when you aren't able to get some good sleep. You get on a plane, your body can't recover. It's a tough ask. If they get a magical start from an Ian Anderson or whoever starts, it will, like I said, it totally resets the postseason. If they can get a good start and win game 1 and not have to lean on their bullpen a ton, they do set themselves up way better to obviously take this series and kind of be back on track for the rest of the postseason. All right, so yeah, huge challenge before them. The Padres have played really great for the second half of the season. Tough team, tough place to play these days, right? San Diego's really showed up big time in terms of their fan base over the last few years. So there are some silver linings here, okay? The first silver lining I'm going to take away beyond the Braves getting into the playoffs is the Braves don't have to take this dumb 5-day off rest. So, maybe this wild sprint to the playoffs, you just keep rolling. You keep going, and it will help the offense. The offense has been pretty bad all year. We know that, especially when it comes to timely hitting and situational hitting. And they have to step up. They have to have big moments in this Padres series. But again, maybe for the fact that they're kind of forced to just play every day, maybe that is to the Braves' benefit. The number two silver lining, no pressure, right? There's really no pressure on the Braves. The way this season has gone, the expectations honestly are off the table, right? Just play loose. Anything they do beyond making the playoffs at this point, I think we just have to be really happy about. The pressure's on the higher seeds. Like I said, the Braves they were able to play so loose in 2021 all the way to the World Series. So much more pressure on them in the last, 2022 and 2023. So no pressure on you. If things start breaking your way, the Padres are going to feel the pressure. You're going to, start riding that positive wave, and that could really go in their favor as well. And, so the big thing to me is, can the Braves get to Chris Sale? Can they win enough to where he can get healthy again and make a start in the playoffs? And I think if we see Chris Sale pitch in the playoffs at any point this year, then obviously the Braves are making a run, right? And they're better when he's on the mound too. That would assume that he's healthy and able to go. And so if we see Chris Sale make a start in these playoffs, then I really like the Braves' chances to at least make a run. Maybe not necessarily win it, but make a run. How cool would it be for just the Braves to make it to the NLCS again, right? Match up with the Phillies. Who knows? Beat the Phillies. Even if you weren't to win the World Series, hey, take the Phillies out. How much better would you feel about this entire season if they could do something like that? So if we never see Chris Sale, obviously number one, it probably means the Braves got bounced early. But man, that would also stink for him to, for everything he's done to miss the playoffs entirely that would just stink. So let's go play, fellas, right? Pressure's off. You made it to the playoffs after all this stuff. The Braves are certainly the most battle-tested, mentally prepared team, I think, in the entire playoffs. They're certainly the team that's overcome the most to get to the playoffs, and that does matter. Okay, so I guarantee you the rest of the National League was hoping the Braves didn't make it yesterday. They did make it. There are probably some teams out there who are a little more nervous to have to play them. I can kind of bet that the Padres would have preferred to play the Diamondbacks. I'm sure they're happy to not have to face Chris Sale, but all that being said, I'm sure they didn't want to see the Braves come to town. So here we go, guys. We're back in the playoffs. We'll see how it goes, and let's just cheer them on and have fun with this postseason. It's been a tough regular season, but maybe this postseason is going to be a little bit more fun. All right, guys. I'll talk to you soon.